Sotha Sil is not the martyr, he never was. Form the dissolve as a maelstrom puppet gnaws at strung to times, sustain and edge illusions lie. For centuries its false dawn masked a deeper war, the maelstrom gnaws at time's edge and Sotha's grief, a key turned in darkness. A grind in what if his ruin was not deeper war defeats silence as and Sotha's grief. What if Sotha Sil's sorrow wasn't a flowet was the key to saving creation, his death a gambit, Almalexia's madness the spark. The Clockwork City, not a tomb but a prison for the maelstrom, each gear turned to bind the cosmic force devouring time's threads. His grief the final gear, the abyss teetered, Daedric war raged, he became the anchor, his essence a lock against entropy, the maelstrom screams still contained. The city's silence is not ruin, it is a seal, a price paid in light. What did he sacrifice? Not himself, the chaos. The gears grind on, unseen, unbroken, his plan outlives the stars. The Clockwork City's brass spires pierce frozen constellations. Sotha Sil's hands, sculpted from starlight and regret, shaped its gears to mirror Nirn's pulse. Here in this Apograph-of-Nirn, he caged the maelstrom's feral roar. Each cog turned not to preserve beauty, but to test resolve. The Daedric princes, bound to chaos, refused to die. Their resistance became his cipher. He built the towers not as monuments, but as anchors. Their fall would collapse the Mundus eyes, but only after his plan had rooted. The city's timelessness was a trap. A stage where entropy's dance could be rewritten. His sorrow, that vast well of sacrificed divinity, fueled the gears, not out of weakness. Out of purpose, the Daedra thought they saw victory in his hollow eyes, a god reduced to weeping. They did not comprehend, grief is the heaviest weight, yes, but also the sharpest wedge. He let the maelstrom gnaw at his essence, knowing its hunger would fail against a heart turned to mechanism. Now the city spins, silent and eternal. Its clockwork heart beats in counterpoint to the unraveling towers. The princes rage, the maelstrom thrashes. But time itself bends to Sotha Sil's silent arithmetic. His tears were not defeat, they were the key, the final gear falling into place. The world's end is his equation. The equation is salvation. The cold air of the tribunal's library reeked of ozone as Sotha Sil traced the Elder Scrolls glyphs. Each word he read burned his tongue, with iron fate rewrote itself in his blood. He heard the maelstrom's distant scream, a sound like shattering crystal, and saw the Daedra's shadows writhing beyond the walls. Their deals were empty. Their power was borrowed. He knew this as the gears of the Clockwork City groaned to life beneath his hands, their brass limbs gleaming with stolen starlight. Bargaining with Meridia, he felt her heat sear his skin like a branding iron. Molag Bal's laughter left frost on his lips. Sotha Sil smiled through the pain. Their refusals were the lockpick he needed. The maelstrom would unravel time, yes, but only if mortals let it. He had already threaded the failsafe, the city's heart, a prison of ticking silence. He watched its spires rise, their clock faces dripping liquid shadow, and smelled the sweet rot of futures devoured and rewritten. The final scroll's light blinded him. He read it in a whisper, his voice cracking like a blade sheathing itself. The words etched his ribs into living script. He became the equation variables of sorrow, leverage of sacrifice. As the city's gears drowned the maelstrom's howl, he tasted copper, his own pulse now entwined with its machinery. A moment, his hand over the central gear, skin merging with steel. He felt the weight of every soul chained to time's river. Asterisk, this is not loss. Asterisk, he thought. Asterisk, this is the arithmetic of forever. Asterisk, the clockwork god's tears did not fall. They asterisk clicked asterisk precise into the lock. The city's hum turned to dirge. Sotha Sil's breath became the rhythm of 1,000 trapped stars. His silence was a cage. His silence was a key. Almalexia's blade parts the air. Sotha Sil's form fractures. Gearworks scream. His essence bleeds into the city's veins. The maelstrom recoils. Not from violence, but from a god's last whisper. What if the Clockwork City was never a tomb? What if it was a snare? His breath falters, a shuddering rhythm. The gears grind not with chaos, but with purpose. Almalexia's madness seeps into the brass, but Sotha Sil's will is already elsewhere. He threads his sorrow into the mechanisms. Each cog becomes a memory. Each spring a prayer. The maelstrom's tide, hungry and vast, collides with a lock forged in grief. The illusion bends. Not a lie, but a pivot. For centuries, the city's gears have spun Sotha Sil's design. A prison, no, a pivot. He did not flee the maelstrom, he became its anchor. His final hymn is not lament, but leverage. The Daedra's hunger meets a cage of time itself. Was the lock ever his to break? The Clockwork City's illusion was no accident, a fail-safe. A gambit, Sotha Sil's madness was not corruption, it was calculation. He traded his body for the weight of eternity. His voice, cracked with the burden of ages, becomes the city's heartbeat. The maelstrom's waves retreat, not defeated, but deferred, a god's sacrifice. Or a god's strategy. The gears endure, the illusion holds, and in the silence a question lingers: did Sotha Sil die? Or did he become the thing the Daedra feared most, a clock that cannot be unwound, a plan that outlasts all plans? The maelstrom still churns, but its master is trapped in brass, in bronze. In the cold, unyielding truth of a god who turned his grief into a weapon sharper than any Daedric blade. But to grasp what follows, understand what he gave up. His tears were not weakness, they were chains, forging the maelstrom's prison in gears and time. Each sob a lock, each heartbeat a cage. The city's cold walls, a tomb for his own soul to keep the storm buried. For Tamriel's sake, for the clock's unbroken hand. The Clockwork City's gears churn with a sound like distant thunder, each tick a shiver through Sotha Sil's entombed ribs. The chimer fled red mountains' sulfuric breath, their skin darkening as ash-choked rivers painted the land. They became Dunmer, eyes blazing with the same fire that now etches Sotha Sil's eternal regret. His lover's face, lost to time's corruption, lingers in the rust of every cog. Rurken's wake remembers, the sea of fallen stars drowned a legion, their shields clashing in a final, discordant hymn. Saltwater still tastes of their blood, a stain no tide erases. The Daedra, whole and unbroken, whisper in the gaps between moments, blind to the god who bent his soul into a chain to bind them. Maelstrom winds howl at the edges of the city, a hunger Sotha Sil feels in his marrow. His heart, once a forge for mortal ambition, now beats in sync with the Girsa dirge. The illusion holds, but cracks bloom where his sorrow seeps. A single tear, frozen mid-fall, glints with the weight of all he cannot undo. The lover's name dies on his tongue, a syllable trapped between gears. Their touch, a memory of warmth, contrasts the city's cold. He wonders, did they curse him or bless him with their misplaced love? The Daedra watch, unaware their shadow is a tether, their freedom a lie woven from divine thread. The cost is not his body. It is the echo of every choice, every life warped by the price of stillness, and the silence between heartbeats where the storm waits. The gears of the Clockwork City turned not with the rhythm of life, but with the dirge of a god's final breath. Sotha Sil's transcendence was no accident. His mind, vast as the maelstrom he sought to bind, fractured itself into the Numidium's soul engineer labyrinth of Dwemer ingenuity, where flesh and thought became one. They did not die, they became the scaffolding of a clockwork psalm, gears humming with the memory of 1,000 mortal years. The towers stand not as monuments, but as dams. Their spires pierce the veil between Mundus and Maelstrom, each cog and conduit a thread in the tapestry that holds back chaos. To watch them is to witness a duel frozen in time, the weight of eternity pressing down and the will of a god-king pushing back. His sacrifice was the keel of this ship. Without it, the Maelstrom would have torn the Mundus asunder. What did he trade? His body for the blueprint, his sorrow for the mechanism. The Dwemer, now unbound, swim in the Numidium's depths, their souls fused with the engine's core. They are not prisoners. They are the silent sentinels of a war that never ends. Every gear that grinds is a verse in Sotha Sil's hymn that says, *I will not let the world drown, *the paradox aches. A god reduced to cogs, a plan so vast it outlived comprehension, yet the towers still stand, and in their silence the maelstrom waits. The cold wind that whistles through the Clockwork City is not the sigh of a dead god. It is the breath of a god who refused to die, whose grief became the keystone of reality itself. What if the final act was not an end? What if the mantled king sleeps, his war unfinished, his plan unfolding in the slow churn of gears no mortal hand can reach? The towers are not saved, they are held, and the maelstrom still hungers. The Clockwork City still turns, its gears bleed silence where Sotha Sil's sorrow once burned. The illusion does not waver, it breathes. What is a failsafe but a god's final whisper? The maelstrom's hunger has not stilled but its maw is caged. Sotha Sil did not fall. He became the lock, his absence is the weight of a held breath, the cosmos waits. The Daedra who once clawed at time's fabric now press their hands to a mirror. They see only the city's gears, endless and false. They do not yet know the truth. A god's grief is not a wound, it is a filament. Sil wove his sorrow into the maelstrom's heart, a thread of stillness in the storm. To weep was to trap, to vanish was to win. The fourth era walks a razor's edge, the illusion holds. The maelstrom, bound by a silence only gods can hear, gnaws at the walls of a cage no eye can see. And in the dark between gears the clockwork god waits, not dead, not dreaming, holding time. Until the Daedra learn that some doors, once sealed, are never meant to open. The towers are not saved, they are held. And the maelstrom still hungers, but it is hungry in a cage. The Daedric princes are whole gods who refuse to sacrifice themselves. They cling to their dominions like rusted crowns. Sotha Sil became a keyhole. While Mallegbal devours souls to avoid decay, while Meridia hoards dawn's light in golden prisons, Sotha Sil poured his essence into a mechanism. His sorrow was not helplessness, it was calculation. The Clockwork City does not stand as a monument, it stands as a chokehold on time's arteries. The maelstrom gnaws at bars forged from the Aldmeri sun. What did the princes trade for their immortality, dominion? What did Sotha Sil trade, himself? They hunger, he holds, they command, he withers. The contrast is not in their power but their cost. A god who dies is a god who loses. A god who becomes asterisk, a tomb is a god who wins. The Daedra cannot break the lock because it was made of him. His grief is the weight that keeps the door sealed. Do the princes envy him? They should, for eternity is a cage, but Sotha Sil's eternity is a weapon. The Clockwork City ticks not with life, but with a promise. The maelstrom's hunger will outlast its prey. And in the end, the greatest irony is this: the one who vanished is the only one who remains. A key in the lock of time, turning against the maelstrom's tide. The book of Sotha Sil, his weeping was no surrender. Each tear carved a gear in the engine of eternity, a sacrifice to bind the maelstrom's hunger. The Clockwork City stands not as a tomb, but a testament, its gears etched with the price of defiance. In the void where the god vanished, his plan endured. The maelstrom gnaws at the edges of forever, yet time holds. Because the clockwork god paid the ultimate toll to become the lock itself, and in that silent, unyielding act the tide turned. Not by might, but by the weight of a grief that refused to die. What did Sotha Sil's gambit demand? A world reshaped by gears and grief. The Clockwork City was no tombit's heart, was a cage for the maelstrom, yet madness breeds in darkness. Almalexia, betrayed by time itself, turned the key. His sorrow became her weapon. How many lives did the clockwork god sacrifice to seal the rift? The answer lies in the